The metal doors of the council chamber slid open with a soft hiss, and Lisa Hayes stepped inside with her companion walking beside her. Khan was a massive Siberian tiger, his orange and black stripes gleaming under the bright lights of Meridian Prime Station. The huge cat moved with quiet grace, his yellow eyes taking in everything around him with calm interest. 12 different alien species sat around the curved table, and every single one of them froze when they saw the tiger. The Velkari delegate, a tall crystalline being named Zextar, made a sound like breaking glass. The bird-like Zephyrian counselor's feathers stood on end, and she let out a sharp screech of alarm. Even the massive Thraxian representative, who looked like a walking mountain of gray stone, took a step backward. Lisa walked to the center of the room, her hand resting gently on Khan's head. The tiger sat down beside her, his tail swishing once, before becoming still. His breathing was steady and relaxed, and he seemed completely unbothered by the nervous energy filling the room. "Honorable counselors," Lisa began, her voice calm and professional. "I am Dr. Lisa Hayes, xenobiologist from Earth. I have come to present humanity's application to join the Galactic Wildlife Conservation Course." Zextar's crystalline form sparkled as he spoke, his voice carrying a musical quality that translated through the universal communicators. "Dr. Hayes, we appreciate your visit, but we must address the obvious concern first. You have brought a predator into our sacred council chamber. This creature could kill any of us in seconds." Lisa smiled and looked down at Khan, who was now lying on his side, looking completely peaceful. "Khan is not a threat to anyone here. He is my partner and friend. We have worked together for 5 years." The Zephyrian counselor, her name was Kriya, spread her silver wings in distress. "Impossible. No species in the galaxy has ever formed bonds with apex predators. It violates every law of nature we know. Predators hunt. They kill. They cannot be controlled." "We don't control them," Lisa explained patiently. "We form partnerships with them. We earn their trust and respect, just as they earn ours." The Thraxian delegate, whose name was Brokton, rumbled like distant thunder. "Show us your data files about Earth. We need to understand what we are dealing with." The holographic display in the center of the room flickered to life, showing images from Earth. The first image showed a human child sleeping peacefully next to a golden retriever. A counselor seemed confused, but not alarmed. Then the next image appeared. A woman riding on the back of a massive horse, both of them jumping over a fence. The aliens murmured among themselves, but when the third image showed a human family sitting around a dinner table with a large gray wolf lying beside them, the room erupted in shocked gasps and frightened sounds. "This is clearly fabricated," Zextar declared, his crystalline body flashing with agitated colors. "No prey species would allow predators into their homes. It is suicide." "These images are completely real," Lisa said firmly. "Humans have lived alongside many species for thousands of years. We call it domestication. We form bonds with animals that benefit both species." The next series of images showed humans working with dolphins, training with hawks, and walking through forests with bears. Each new picture caused more distress among the council members. Kriya's voice was high and sharp with panic. "This is madness. Your species is either lying to us or you are all insane. Apex predators cannot be trained. They are killing machines, nothing more." Lisa felt Khan shift beside her, and she looked down to see the tiger watching the bird-like alien with mild interest. His ears were forward, and his expression was curious rather than threatening. "Khan," Lisa said softly, "say hello to Counselor Kriya." The tiger looked up at Lisa, then back at the nervous bird alien. He made a soft chuffing sound, which was his way of greeting friends. The sound was gentle and almost musical. Kriya screamed and launched herself into the air, her wings beating frantically as she tried to reach the ceiling. "It's trying to communicate. Predators don't communicate. They hunt." Broke-Tone's voice was like grinding stone. "Dr. Hayes, we have reviewed your species application, and we find it disturbing. You claim to have formed bonds with creatures that should be your natural enemies. You ride animals that could crush you. You keep wolves as companions. You swim with sharks. This behavior is not natural." "It's perfectly natural for humans," Lisa replied. "We have a gift for understanding other species. We can read their body language, understand their needs, and build relationships based on mutual respect." The holographic display showed more images. A human veterinarian treating a wounded lion. A person training dolphins to help with ocean research, and children playing with puppies that would grow into large dogs. Zextar's form flickered with angry red colors. "These relationships you describe are impossible. Predators exist to hunt and kill. They cannot feel loyalty or affection. They cannot be trusted." "Khan has saved my life 3 times, Lisa said quietly. "Once from a landslide, once from a charging rhino, and once from a group of poachers who wanted to steal our research. He chose to protect me because he considers me part of his family." The tiger looked up at her when she mentioned his name, and his expression was clearly affectionate. He made another soft chuffing sound and rubbed his head against her leg. The council members watched this interaction with a mixture of fear and fascination. They had never seen anything like it in their experience. Kriya, now perched on a high ledge near the ceiling, called down to them. "Even if what you say is true, it changes nothing. The Conservation Corps deals with the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. Species that have destroyed entire colonies. Monsters that can phase through matter or breathe plasma. No amount of friendship will help you against such beings." "We believe it will," Lisa said with confidence. "Humans have a unique ability to form bonds with any species, no matter how dangerous they might seem to others." The voting session that followed was brief and unanimous. Every member of the council raised their hand, tentacle, or wing to reject humanity's application. Zextar's voice was final and cold. "The Galactic Wildlife Conservation Corps cannot accept a species that demonstrates such fundamental misunderstanding of predator behavior. Your application is denied due to biological impossibilities and extreme safety concerns." Lisa nodded calmly, though disappointment was clear in her eyes. "I understand your decision, counselors, but I believe you're making a mistake. Someday, you might need our help." She turned to leave, and Khan rose gracefully to follow her. As they walked toward the exit, the tiger paused and looked back at the assembled aliens one more time. His expression was peaceful and almost sad, as if he understood their fear and wished it could be different. The doors closed behind them, leaving the council chamber in tense silence. 3 months had passed since the council meeting, and Lisa Hayes stood on the rocky outcrop overlooking the silver grasslands of Kepler 442b. The twin suns cast strange shadows across the alien landscape, and in the distance she could see the dark shapes moving through the tall grass. The Shadowcats were hunting again. Khan lay beside her, his massive form relaxed but alert. His ears twitched at every sound, and his yellow eyes tracked the movements in the grass below. The tiger had adapted well to this new world, though the lower gravity made his jumps almost comically long. "There," whispered Dr. Kevin Martinez, pointing toward a cluster of purple trees. "The big male is back." Lisa raised her binoculars and focused on the area Kevin indicated. A magnificent shadowcat emerged from the tree line, his fur so dark it seemed to absorb light. He was larger than Khan, with silver markings along his face and shoulders that seemed to shimmer and move. This was the pride leader they had been observing for weeks. "He's beautiful," said Sergeant Amy Johnson, her voice filled with professional admiration. Amy had worked with big cats in the military for 10 years before joining the research team. Look at those muscles. He could take down a shuttle if he wanted to. The shadow cat moved with fluid grace, his paws making no sound on the rocky ground. Behind him, 5 other cats followed in single file. They were hunting something, but Lisa couldn't see what. Dr. Hayes called Vexti, one of their Valkyrie research assistants. His crystalline form was trembling slightly. "Are you certain it is safe to observe them from this distance?" "The colonists say these creatures can phase through solid matter." "They can," Lisa confirmed, not lowering her binoculars. "But they only do it when they feel threatened or when they're hunting. Right now, they're just moving through their territory." The Thraxian assistant, Grokmar, made a sound like grinding stone. "The military reports say these beasts have killed 47 colonists in the past year. They appear without warning and vanish just as quickly. How can you study something that can walk through walls?" Lisa finally lowered her binoculars and looked at her alien colleagues. "The same way we study any predator. We learn their patterns, understand their behavior, and respect their space. These attacks aren't random. There's a reason behind them." Kevin was taking notes on his tablet, recording the pride's movements. "The colonists have been building settlements right in the middle of their traditional hunting grounds. The shadow cats are probably confused and territorial." "Confused predators are dead predators," Amy added grimly. "The colonial militia is planning a hunting expedition next week. They want to wipe out the entire species." Lisa felt Khan shift beside her, and she looked down to see the tiger watching her with concerned eyes. He always seemed to sense when she was troubled. "We need more data," she said finally. "We need to understand what's driving the attacks." The next morning, Lisa woke to find their camp surrounded. 6 shadow cats had appeared during the night, forming a perfect circle around their research station. The alien assistants were panic-stricken, and Vexti was making high-pitched crystalline sounds of distress. "They're going to kill us all," Grokmar rumbled, his stone-like body trembling. "We should call for evacuation immediately." But Lisa was studying the cats with fascination rather than fear. They weren't acting aggressive. Their ears were forward. Their tails were still, and their postures suggested curiosity rather than hunting behavior. "Nobody move," she said quietly. "They're not here to hunt. They're here to investigate." The largest shadow cat, the silver-marked male they had been observing, was sitting directly in front of their main shelter. His green eyes were fixed on Lisa with intense interest. When she looked back at him, he tilted his head slightly, almost like a house cat trying to understand something. Khan had been sleeping beside Lisa's cot, but now he was awake and alert. The tiger rose slowly and walked to the shelter's entrance, where only a thin barrier of mesh separated him from the wild shadow cat. The 2 predators looked at each other through the mesh, and something passed between them that Lisa couldn't quite understand. It wasn't aggression or fear. It was recognition. Double quotes Dr. Hayes. Kevin whispered urgently. "What do we do?" Lisa took a deep breath and made a decision that would change everything. She walked to the shelter entrance and slowly opened the mesh door. "Lisa, no!" Amy shouted, but Lisa was already stepping outside. The shadow cat leader watched her approach, his massive head turning to follow her movements. Lisa could feel the psychic pressure that these creatures were known for, a subtle influence that made prey animals freeze with terror. But she had worked with predators her entire career, and she knew how to read their signals. She stopped 3 feet away from the cat and slowly extended her hand, palm up. It was the same gesture she had used with Khan years ago when they first met. The shadow cat's eyes widened slightly and his ears twitched. He leaned forward and sniffed her hand, his whiskers brushing her palm. His breath was warm and smelled of the alien grass he had been eating. Behind her, Lisa heard Vexti make a sound like shattering crystal but she didn't turn around. The shadow cat was still sniffing her hand, and she could feel his psychic presence in her mind. It wasn't threatening or invasive. It was gentle, almost questioning. Khan chose that moment to walk through the open door and join them. The tiger moved slowly and carefully, his body language showing respect rather than challenge. The shadow cat turned his attention to the earth. Predator, and the two cats regarded each other with what could only be described as mutual curiosity. "Impossible," Grokmar whispered. "Predators from different worlds cannot coexist. They should be fighting for territory." But instead of fighting, the two cats began what looked like a conversation. The shadow cat made a low rumbling sound, and Khan responded with one of his soft chuffs. The alien cat tilted his head and made another sound, almost like a question. Lisa watched in amazement as her tiger and the wild shadow cat began to communicate. They circled each other slowly, sniffing and making gentle sounds. There was no aggression, no territorial display. They were simply two intelligent predators getting to know each other. The other shadow cats had moved closer, forming a loose circle around Lisa, Khan, and their leader. Their postures were relaxed, and several of them were lying down in the grass, watching the proceedings with interest. "They're not mindless killers," Lisa said softly, more to herself than to her team. "They're intelligent, social creatures. They have families, territories, and complex relationships." Over the following hours, the shadow cats gradually integrated themselves into the research camp. They seemed fascinated by the humans and their equipment, sniffing at computers and watching the team work with curious eyes. The breakthrough came when Lisa realized that the psychic abilities the colonists feared were actually a form of communication. The shadow cats projected emotions and images to share information with each other. When they encountered humans, they tried to use the same method, but humans couldn't understand the psychic language. The result was confusion and fear on both sides. "They've been trying to tell the colonists something," Kevin said excitedly, reviewing his notes. "The attacks weren't random. They were warnings." Amy nodded in agreement. "Look at the pattern. Every attack happened near the water sources that the cats use for drinking. The colonists have been building dams and redirecting streams." Lisa felt the pieces falling into place. They're not attacking because they're evil. They're attacking because their survival is threatened. The colonists are destroying their habitat. The silver-marked shadow cat, who Lisa had begun thinking of as Silver, approached her again. This time, he lay down in the grass beside her, his massive form relaxed and peaceful. Khan joined them, and the three of them sat together in the alien. "Sunshine." "Dr. Hayes," Bexty said, his voice filled with wonder, "you have achieved something that our science says is impossible. You have formed a bond with an apex predator from another world." Lisa smiled and rested her hand on Silver's fur. It was softer than she had expected, with an almost metallic sheen. "It's not impossible. It just requires understanding, patience, and respect." Silver made a soft purring sound and nudged her hand with his head. In that moment, Lisa knew she had found something that would change the galaxy's understanding of predator behavior forever. The sun was setting over the alien grasslands when the shadow cats finally began to leave. They departed one by one, fading into the gathering darkness like living shadows. Silver was the last to go, and before he left, he did something that brought tears to Lisa's eyes. The great cat walked over to Khan and touched noses with the tiger, a gesture of friendship and respect. Then he looked at Lisa one more time, his green eyes filled with intelligence and something that looked very much like gratitude as he vanished into the night. Lisa knew that everything had changed. The impossible had become possible, and she had the proof to show the galaxy. The emergency transmission reached Lisa's camp on Kepler 442b at dawn, crackling through the communication array with urgent priority codes. The holographic display flickered to life, showing Zextar's crystalline form, but his usual composed demeanor was gone. His body was flashing with rapid colors of distress, and his musical voice carried notes of panic. "Dr. Hayes, we need your help," he said without preamble. "The Nexus Empire has launched a massive assault on the Andromedian colonies. They're using bioweapons we've never seen before. Creatures that our military cannot stop." Lisa stood beside the communication console, with Khan at her side and Silver lying nearby in the grass. The Shadowcat had taken to staying close to their camp, and several of his Pride members visited regularly. Kevin and Amy gathered around the display, their faces grave. "What kind of creatures?" Lisa asked, though she suspected she already knew. The answer, Zextar's form flickered with deeper shades of red. Apex predators from dozens of worlds. Giant void spiders that can teleport through dimensional rifts. Plasma-breathing drakes that burn entire cities. Psionic death forms that drive people insane before killing them. The Nexus has somehow weaponized them. The display showed footage from the attacked colonies, and Lisa felt her stomach turn. Massive spider-like creatures were appearing and disappearing. At will, their 8 legs carrying them through the air as they descended on screaming civilians. In another scene, dragon-like beasts with metallic scales were breathing streams of superheated plasma that melted through building walls like butter. "How many colonies have been hit?" Amy asked, her military training evident in her crisp tone. 17. "So far," Zextar replied. "The Andromedian defense fleet is in full retreat. Their weapons are useless against these creatures. Energy shields don't stop them. Kinetic barriers mean nothing to creatures that can phase through matter." Kevin was taking notes rapidly. "These aren't just random attacks. The Nexus is using the creature's natural abilities as weapons. They've turned predator instincts into military tactics." Lisa studied the footage more carefully. The creatures were clearly distressed and confused. Their movements were erratic, and she could see signs of artificial control devices attached to many of them. They're not doing this voluntarily. Look at their behavior patterns. These animals are being forced to fight. Silver had risen from the grass and was now standing beside Lisa, his green eyes fixed on the holographic display. The Shadowcat made a low sound that she had learned meant distress or sympathy. Even across species lines, he could recognize suffering. "The Council is desperate," Zextar continued. "We've lost contact with 6 colonies completely. The Andromedian government is preparing for total evacuation. They're talking about abandoning their homeworld." Lisa felt Khan press against her leg, and she looked down to see the tiger watching her with alert eyes. He always seemed to sense when she was making important decisions. "What do you want from us?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. Zextar's colors shifted to pleading blues and purples. "Your application to join the Conservation Corps was rejected, but we need to reconsider. If your species truly has the ability to communicate with apex predators, then you might be our only hope." The irony wasn't lost on Lisa. 3 months ago, the Council had dismissed humanity's abilities as impossible. Now they were begging for help. But people were dying, and personal satisfaction mattered less than saving lives. "We'll help," she said firmly, "but we do this our way. No interference from the Council, no military oversight, and no questions about our methods." "Agreed," Zextar said immediately. "Anything you need. How quickly can you deploy?" Lisa looked at her team, then at Silver, who was still watching the display with concerned eyes. "Give us 12 hours to prepare. We'll need transport for our people and their companions." "Companions?" Zextar's form flickered with confusion. "Our animal partners," Lisa explained. "We don't work alone." The USS Endeavour arrived at Kepler 442b exactly 12 hours later, its massive cargo bays modified to accommodate unusual passengers. Captain Rick Parker, a veteran of numerous diplomatic missions, greeted Lisa with a firm handshake and a slightly worried expression. "Dr. Hayes, I've been briefed on your mission, but I have to admit, I'm not sure what to expect. My crew is nervous about the passengers we're carrying." Lisa smiled and gestured toward the loading ramp, where her team was directing the boarding process. "Just treat them like any other intelligent beings, Captain. They're here to help." The sight that greeted the ship's crew was unlike anything in their experience. 50 human animal handlers walked up the ramp, each accompanied by their predator partners. There were tigers like Khan, lions with flowing manes, wolves with intelligent eyes, and even a few bears that moved with surprising grace. But the most unusual sight was Silver and his pride. The Shadow Cats had volunteered to join the mission, their psychic abilities potentially crucial for dealing with the psionic death forms. They moved through the ship like living shadows, their fur seeming to absorb light. "Captain," said Lieutenant Janet Cruz, the ship's security chief, "should we be concerned about having all these predators aboard?" Captain Parker watched as a massive wolf named Storm walked peacefully beside his handler, Staff Sergeant Danny Brooks. The wolf's tongue was hanging out slightly, and his tail was wagging. "I don't think so, Lieutenant. They seem remarkably well behaved." The journey to the Andromedian system took 3 days, during which the ship's crew gradually overcame their initial nervousness. The predators were calm and friendly, and their handlers were professional and competent. By the second day, several crew members were playing with the smaller wolves, and even scratching behind the ears of some of the big cats. Dr. Martinez spent the journey studying the bioweapon footage, identifying behavioral patterns and potential communication methods. "The void spiders are acting like they're lost," he explained to the assembled team. "They keep trying to return to the same dimensional coordinates, but something is preventing them." Amy was reviewing tactical data with the military handlers. "The drakes are showing territorial behavior, but it's being artificially enhanced. They're fighting over areas that don't have the resources they would naturally compete for." Lisa was working with Silver, using their growing psychic connection to understand the death form's behavior. The images she received were disturbing. Creatures of pure mental energy, trapped in physical bodies and forced to use their abilities for destruction instead of communication. "They're not weapons," she told the team. "They're beings who communicate through thought and emotion. The Nexus has perverted their natural abilities into tools of war." When they reached the Andromedian system, the scope of the disaster was immediately clear. Several space stations were dark and lifeless, their hulls scarred by plasma burns. Debris from destroyed ships floated in the void, and the normally busy trade routes were empty. "My God," Captain Parker whispered, staring at the main display. "It's like a graveyard." The Andromedian Defense Coordinator, a squid-like being named Fluxara, appeared on the communication screen. Her tentacles were pale with stress, and her voice carried the weight of desperation. "Human ship, thank you for coming. We have 3 colonies still under attack. The situation is critical." Lisa stepped forward, with Khan beside her and Silver's psychic presence touching her mind. "We're here to help. Send us the coordinates and stand back. We'll handle this our way." "Are you certain?" Flux Aura asked. "These creatures have destroyed our best military units. They're not like anything we've ever faced." Lisa looked around at her team, at the predators who had chosen to fight alongside them, and at the hope in the eyes of the crew. "We're certain. Humans don't abandon their friends, and we don't back down from a challenge." Silver made a soft sound that Lisa had learned meant agreement and determination. The Shadow Cat's green eyes were bright with purpose, and she could feel his confidence through their psychic link. "Besides," Lisa added with a slight smile, "we have a secret weapon. We understand predators because we are predators. And it's time the galaxy learned what that really means." The battle for the Andromedian colonies was about to begin, and for the first time since the attack started, there was hope. The impossible partnership between humans and apex predators was about to face its greatest test, and the fate of entire worlds hung in the balance. Captain Parker gave the order to begin deployment, and the USS Endeavour moved toward the first battle zone. In the cargo bay, 50 human handlers and their predator companions prepared for a fight unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The first battle zone was Andromeda Prime, a bustling industrial world that had been reduced to a nightmare landscape. Massive void spiders appeared and disappeared at random, their 8 legs carrying them through dimensional rifts as they hunted. The terrified population. The creatures were each the size of a small building, with bodies that seemed to absorb light and eyes that glowed with an unnatural purple fire. Captain Parker watched from the bridge as the dropships descended toward the planet's surface. Each ship carried a team of human handlers and their predator companions, along with the specialized equipment they would need for the mission. "Are you sure about this, Dr. Hayes?" he asked through the communication link. These creatures had destroyed 3 military battalions. Lisa's voice came back, steady and confident. "We're sure, Captain. These aren't evil monsters. They're confused and frightened animals being forced to fight. We're going to help them." Staff Sergeant Danny Brooks was in the lead dropship with his wolf companion Rex, a massive gray animal with intelligent yellow eyes. Danny had worked with wolves for 15 years, and he knew how to read their body language and communicate with them through subtle signals. "Remember," he told his team through the comm system, "we're not here to fight these creatures. We're here to understand them and help them get home." The drop ship landed in the ruins of what had once been a beautiful city. Buildings were twisted into impossible shapes, and the air shimmered with dimensional distortions. A void spider materialized 50 feet away, its massive form blocking out the sun. The creature's 8 legs moved in a strange pattern, and its body flickered in and out of existence. But Danny noticed something that the military forces had missed. The spider's movements weren't random. It was following a specific sequence, over and over again. "It's trying to go home," he said softly. "Rex, what do you think?" The wolf sniffed the air and made a low whining sound. His ears were forward, and his posture showed concern rather than fear. Rex had encountered many confused animals in his time with Danny, and he recognized the signs of distress. Danny approached the void spider slowly, his movements calm and non-threatening. The creature's multiple eyes fixed on him, and he could feel the dimensional energy crackling around its body. But instead of attacking, the spider stopped its frantic movement and seemed to study him. "Easy, big guy," Danny said in the same gentle tone he used with frightened animals. "You're not supposed to be here, are you? You want to go home." The spider made a sound like tearing fabric, and Danny realized it was trying to communicate. The creature's body flickered more rapidly, and he could see strange symbols appearing in the air around it. Rex padded forward and sat down near the spider's front legs. The wolf's body language was peaceful and non-threatening, and he made a soft whuffing sound that he used to calm other animals. Something amazing happened. The void spider's frantic movement slowed, and its body became more solid. The creature lowered its massive head and made a sound that was almost like a purr. "That's it," Danny said encouragingly. "You're scared and lost, but we're here to help." On Andromeda 2, Dr. Martinez was facing a different challenge. The plasma-breathing drakes were territorial creatures, about the size of Earth's largest dinosaurs with metallic scales that reflected light like mirrors. They had been burning cities and fighting each other in destructive territorial battles. Martinez had brought his team of big cat handlers, including Sergeant Johnson and her lion, companion Goldie. The lioness was a magnificent creature with a golden mane and she moved with the confidence of a natural leader. "These drakes are acting like they're fighting over territory," Martinez explained to his team. "But look at what they're actually fighting over. Empty lots, abandoned buildings, areas with no resources. Something is forcing them to compete for worthless space." The largest drake, a magnificent creature with copper-colored scales, was perched on top of a ruined skyscraper. Its wings were spread wide, and it was breathing streams of superheated plasma at anything that moved in the streets below. "Goldie," Amy said to her lion, "what do you think? Is he really aggressive, or is he just confused?" The lioness studied the drake carefully, her golden eyes taking in every detail of its posture and behavior. She made a soft sound that Amy recognized as her way of saying the creature was scared rather than angry. Amy began to approach the building where the drake was perched. The creature noticed her immediately and let out a roar that shook the ground. But Amy had heard thousands of roars in her career, and she could tell the difference between a threat and a warning. "You're not really angry," she called up to the drake. "You're protecting something. What are you protecting?" The drake's head tilted slightly, and Amy realized it was listening to her. She continued walking forward, her movements slow and deliberate. "Goldie, show him we're not a threat," Amy said softly. The lioness lay down on the rubble-strewn street and began to groom herself, the universal feline signal for relaxation and non-aggression. The drake watched this display with obvious interest, its head cocked to one side. Amy reached the base of the building and began to climb. The drake could have incinerated her with a single breath, but instead it watched her approach with curious eyes. When she reached the roof, Amy discovered what the drake was protecting. Nested in the corner of the building were 3 large eggs, each one glowing with internal heat. The drake was a mother, and she was protecting her unborn children. "Oh, sweetheart," Amy said softly, "you're not a weapon, you're a mom." The drake's aggressive posture melted away, and she made a sound that was almost like a sob. Amy could see the control devices attached to the creature's neck, forcing her to fight when all she wanted was to protect her eggs. On Andromeda 3, Lisa faced the most challenging situation of all. The psionic death forms were creatures of pure mental energy, trapped in physical bodies and forced to use their telepathic abilities as weapons. They had driven entire populations insane, filling people's minds with terror and despair. Lisa had Can with her, but more importantly, she had Silver and his pride of Shadowcats. The alien felines had psychic abilities of their own, and they might be the key to communicating with the death forms. The creatures were massive, each one the size of a subway train, with bodies that seemed to be made of living shadow. They moved through the ruins of the city like ghosts, their presence filling the air with overwhelming dread. "I can feel them," Lisa said, her hand resting on Silver's head. "They're not trying to hurt anyone. They're trying to communicate, but they don't know how." Through her psychic connection with Silver, Lisa could sense the deathworm's confusion and pain. They were beings who existed naturally in the realm of thought and emotion, but they had been forced into physical forms and used as weapons. "Trying to tell us something," she said to her team. "But their natural way of communication is being twisted into something harmful." Silver made a soft sound and pressed his head against Lisa's hand. Through their connection, she could feel the Shadowcat reaching out with his psychic abilities, trying to make contact with the death forms. What happened next was beyond anything Lisa had imagined. The death forms stopped their destructive movement and began to gather around the human Shadowcat team. Their massive forms created a circle, and Lisa could feel their mental presence becoming less chaotic and more focused. Through Silver's psychic abilities, Lisa began to understand what the death forms were trying to say. They were not weapons or monsters. They were a hive mind, a collective consciousness that had been trying to establish communication with other intelligent species. "They're not attacking," Lisa said in wonder. "They're trying to make first contact." But the Nexus Empire captured them and perverted their abilities into weapons. The largest deathworm moved closer, its massive form casting a shadow over the entire team. But instead of the overwhelming terror that others had experienced, Lisa felt a gentle mental touch, filled with gratitude and hope. "You want to go home," she said softly. "But first, you want to help us stop the ones who hurt you." The deathworm's mental voice was like a whisper in her mind, filled with ancient sadness and new hope. Through Silver's translation, Lisa understood that the creatures had been peaceful explorers, traveling through space to make contact with other intelligent species. The Nexus Empire had captured them and used their natural abilities as weapons of war. But now, with the psychic link established, the death forms could communicate their true intentions. They wanted to help stop the Nexus forces and free the other captured creatures. Across all 3 battle zones, the tide was turning. Danny and his wolf pack had successfully calmed the Void Spiders, showing them how to use their dimensional abilities to return to their home realm. The creatures were no longer randomly attacking civilians, but instead were turning their attention to the Nexus control ships orbiting the planets. Martinez and his big cat team had established dominance hierarchies with the Drakes, channeling their territorial instincts away from populated areas and toward the Nexus ground forces. The magnificent creatures were now protecting the cities they had once burned, using their plasma breath to destroy enemy equipment rather than innocent lives. Most importantly, Lisa and the Shadowcats had created a psychic network that connected all T. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was called exactly 1 week after the victory at Andromeda. The Great Chamber on Meridian Prime had been hastily prepared for an unprecedented gathering. Not only were all 12 species represented, but there were also new attendees who had never before been welcome in the sacred halls of diplomacy. Lisa Hayes walked through the entrance with Khan at her side, just as she had 3 months earlier. But this time, she was not alone. Following behind them came a procession that would have been unimaginable before the Andromedan crisis. A void spider, no larger than a house cat in this dimension, rode on Lisa's shoulder. The creature had volunteered to serve as an ambassador for its species, and its multiple eyes sparkled with intelligence and curiosity. On her other arm perched a small drake, its copper scales gleaming in the chamber's lights. The young creature made soft chirping sounds, clearly fascinated by the new environment. But the most remarkable sight was the gentle presence that touched every mind in the chamber. One of the death forms had chosen to attend, not in physical form, but as a whisper of psychic energy that allowed everyone present to understand each other's thoughts and emotions with perfect clarity. Behind Lisa came her team, Danny Brooks, with Rex the Wolf, Amy Johnson with Goldie the Lion, and Kevin Martinez with his bear companion Bruno. Each human was accompanied by their predator partner, and the sight of so many apex predators moving peacefully through the chamber filled the alien counselors with a mixture of awe and residual fear. Silver and 2 of his Shadowcat Pride members padded silently beside the group, their psychic abilities adding to the network of understanding that the Deathworm had created. The chamber had become a place where every species could communicate directly, without the barriers of language or cultural misunderstanding. Zek Star, the Valkyrie delegate, was the first to speak. His crystalline form was flickering with colors that Lisa now understood represented gratitude and wonder. "Dr. Hayes, what you and your team accomplished at Andromeda has changed our understanding of what is possible in this galaxy." The Thraxian Counselor Brokjan stepped forward with his massive stone-like form. "The bioweapons that terrorized our worlds for days were pacified in hours. Our military forces could not stop them, but your animal companions turned them into allies." Kriya, the Zephyrian counselor, had overcome her initial fear and was now perched on a lower platform, her silver feathers gleaming with excitement. The psychic network created by the Deathforms has allowed us to communicate with species we never thought possible. We can understand each other's thoughts and emotions directly. Lisa smiled and looked around at the assembled representatives. Through the psychic link, she could feel their genuine amazement and gratitude. What we did wasn't magic or impossible technology. It was simply understanding and respect. Every species in this galaxy has the potential for friendship and cooperation. The small drake on her arm chirped softly, and through the psychic network, everyone could understand its meaning. The human female speaks truth. We are not weapons. We are beings who wish to live in peace. The void spider on Lisa's shoulder added its own voice, speaking in harmonious tones that resonated through the chamber. Our species owes a great debt to the humans and their companions. They showed us that different does not mean enemy. Khan, who had been sitting quietly beside Lisa, rose and began to walk around the chamber. The massive tiger moved with calm dignity, his yellow eyes taking in each of the alien representatives. Several of them instinctively stepped back, but Khan's intentions were peaceful. He approached Zextar first, the Velkari delegate who had initially been most opposed to humanity's application. The crystalline being's form flickered with nervous energy, but Khan simply sat down in front of him and waited. "What does he want?" Zextar asked, his musical voice carrying notes of uncertainty. "He wants to show you something," Lisa replied softly. "Khan, show them what we talked about." The great tiger rose and padded over to the chamber's entrance. The massive doors were made of reinforced metal, designed to withstand the stresses of space travel. Khan positioned himself beside the door controls, and with careful precision, pressed the opening mechanism with his paw. The doors slid open with a soft hiss, and Khan held his position, waiting patiently for someone to pass through. It was a simple gesture, but its meaning was profound. Here was an apex predator, a creature that could kill any being in the room, choosing instead to perform an act of courtesy and service. Zextar stared at the tiger for a long moment, his crystalline form shifting through colors that represented amazement and understanding. Slowly, he approached the door and walked through it, with Khan waiting patiently until he had passed before releasing the control. "Impossible," the Velkari whispered, but his tone was filled with wonder rather than disbelief. An apex predator, showing courtesy to a potential prey species. This defies every law of biology we know. It only defies the laws if you don't understand what's really happening, Lisa explained. Khan doesn't see you as prey. He sees you as a member of his extended pack, someone worthy of respect and protection. The Deathworm's psychic voice filled the chamber with gentle warmth. The human bond transcends species barriers. What you call impossible, they call friendship. The formal vote that followed was different from the one 3 months earlier. Instead of fear and rejection, there was enthusiasm and hope. Every member of the council raised their hand, tentacle, or wing to accept humanity's application to join the conservation course, but the decision went far beyond a simple acceptance. The council voted to create an entirely new division within the course, the Interspecies Communication Department, with Lisa Hayes as its first director and Khan as her official co-director. "Dr. Hayes," Zextar said, his form now glowing with warm golden colors, "we would like to offer you and your team a permanent position. Not just as members of the Conservation Corps, but as ambassadors for a new era of galactic cooperation." The weeks that followed saw the establishment of the Terran Animal Ambassador Program, with bases on dozens of worlds throughout the galaxy. Human teams, each accompanied by their predator partners, traveled to planets where dangerous fauna threatened colonists or where species conflicts seemed insurmountable. The program's success was immediate and dramatic. On Centauri 7, a team, led by Danny Brooks and Rex, helped establish communication with the native crystal wolves, ending years of attacks on mining operations. On Vega Prime, Amy Johnson and Goldie worked with the local pride hunters to create territorial boundaries that protected both the animals and the colonists. But perhaps the most important development was the spread of the psychic communication network. The Death Forms, grateful for their freedom, had volunteered to establish permanent links between major worlds, allowing species throughout the galaxy to communicate directly with each other. The change was visible everywhere. On Meridian Prime, the research station that had once been a place of rigid formality, children now played safely in parks, watched over by a mixed group of Earth animals and alien creatures. Human children laughed as they played fetch with Velkari crystal hounds, while alien youngsters learned to ride on the backs of gentle Earth horses. The sight that best symbolized the new era was the daily gathering in the station's central plaza. Every afternoon, representatives from dozens of species would meet to share stories, discuss problems, and simply enjoy each other's company. At the center of the group, Khan and Silver would lie together in the artificial sunlight, two apex predators from different worlds who had become the symbols of galactic friendship. Lisa often sat with them, watching the children play and their adults talk. The small Drake, who had decided to stay with her permanently, would perch on her shoulder and chirp observations about the various species they encountered. The Void Spider, now a permanent ambassador, would translate between dimensional languages and help resolve conflicts between creatures from different realities. The program's motto, inspired by Khan's famous door-holding gesture, had become known. Throughout the galaxy, understanding opens all doors. It was printed in 100 different languages and communication methods, from the musical tones of the Velkari to the color patterns of the Thraxians. But for Lisa, the most meaningful moment came during a quiet evening when she was writing in her research journal. Khan was lying beside her desk, and Silver was curled up nearby, both apex predators completely relaxed and peaceful. "They said you can't train apex predators," she wrote, her pen moving steadily across the page. "They were wrong. You don't train them, you understand them, respect them, and become part of their pack. You earn their trust and loyalty, not through force or fear, but through patience and kindness." She paused and looked at her two companions, both watching her with intelligent, affectionate eyes. That's the human way. We don't conquer or control. We build bridges, form friendships, and create families that cross every boundary the universe can create. Khan made his soft chuffing sound, and Silver responded with a gentle purr. The two predators touched noses in a gesture of friendship that had become familiar throughout the galaxy. And sometimes, Lisa continued writing, the greatest strength isn't in being the most dangerous predator. It's in being the one who